Good evening. Hello.
Still on mute.
We can't hear you.
Good
You
evening
are
to
on
all of
mute.
you. It is with great pleasure that I extend a
We can't hear you.
heartfelt welcome to each one of you to this focused topic on advancing sustainable building practices, the role of labs and state-of-the-art infrastructure to enhance energy efficiency and thermal comforts. Our focus on the significance of labs and pivotal role in propelling the innovations and progress to achieve the SDG goals. As we all know that labs with cutting-edge infrastructure functions as a testing ground for ideas, validate hypotheses, and achieve breakthroughs and form a solid foundation to thrive in sustainable building practices. Energy efficiency and thermal comforts are at the forefront of our discussions today. The two elements are not only crucial from environmental perspective, but are also essential for the well-being and productivity of the occupants within these spaces. As we delve into the intricacies of the technologies, let us keep in mind the impact that one has because of our decisions on the world that we are habitating. In alignment with the shared vision, TERI, with support of Mahindra Lifespace's Developers Limited, has established the Mahindra-TERI Centre of Excellence, more commonly and popularly known as MTCoE, to foster sustainability within the building sector through innovation and resource-efficient solutions tailored to the Indian building sector and climate. The NABL accredited lab at the center is equipped with cutting-edge technology instruments for thermal characterization and envisioned to create an extensive database that will lead to improved design accuracy along with applying advanced computer methods like machine learning to develop algorithms and predictive solutions. So to this session, our distinguished speakers and experts bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. Their insights promise to illuminate the path forward and inspire us to adopt and implement sustainable building practices that are not only energy efficient, but also prioritize the comfort and well-being of those who live and work in these spaces. As we embark on this journey, I expect the audience will actively engage in these discussions and ask questions and share their perspective and exchange ideas, and collaborative efforts are the cornerstones of progress. Once again, I welcome you all to this session and I hand it over to Sheen. Thanks.
Thank you for your words. Next, I cordially invite Mr. Viril Oza, who's joining us today evening online. Mr. Oza is the Chief Marketing Officer, Mahindra Lifespace Developers Limited. Mr. Viril is a leader with nearly 3 decades of marketing experience across FMCG, telecom, media, and real estate categories. His area of expertise spans several countries in Asia, Africa, and in the Middle East. Please welcome Mr. Oza with a round of applause as he presents the keynote address.
Thank you very much. I hope I'm audible.
Absolutely. Loud and clear.
Great. Thank you. Firstly, my thanks to TERI, Mr. Sanjay Seth, and all the organizers for the opportunity to address this August gathering. I I'd like to start by quoting the author of Jurassic Park, Michael Crichton, who said, and I quote, "Let's be clear, the planet is not in jeopardy. We are in jeopardy. We haven't got the power to destroy the planet or to save it, but we might have the power to save ourselves," end quote. And in that context, let me share some numbers many of you are familiar with, but they're worth reminding ourselves of. The buildings and construction sector combined are responsible for 34% of global energy consumption and nearly 37% of total direct and indirect emissions. Since 2015, in the last 8 years, global use of energy in buildings has grown by 1% every year. Global use of electricity in buildings has grown by 2.5% every year. And global buildings-related CO2 emissions continue to rise by nearly 1% every year. Each week, globally, the building sector adds the equivalent of the surface area of Paris in new construction. Every week, 1 Paris is added. So we've already added about 5.5 Parises this year on top of the 52 Parises last year. Coming to India, the real estate sector is expected to reach a market size of about $1 trillion by 2030, which is an 8x growth in just 13 years. And we will contribute, or we are expected to contribute about 13% of the country's GDP by 2025. So we will continue to be a key industry to the economy. Now, most of the new construction that will happen as part of this growth is still not energy efficient enough to reduce total emissions and not designed to support sustainable resource use. So here's a glass half empty, half full kind of data point. Nearly 70% of the urban infrastructure needed in India by 2047 is yet to be built. So the glass half empty part is that buildings are long-lived, so delaying implementation of policies and practices that aid decarbonization locks in high emissions for decades. The glass half full part is that the value of investing in such policies and practices without delay can still be tremendous because we have another nearly 25 years to build this 70%. So the key question is, what can laboratories and the industry players do to realize this glass half full part? I must admit I have more hypotheses and questions than answers, but I'll pose them anyway with some suggestions. So the first hypothesis is that we are a capital-intensive business and cannot afford to spend on new unproven methods or rely on just laboratory-generated data alone. So my suggestion or solution is, why can't the industry collaborate to create laboratories that convert laboratory data and develop new materials and new construction techniques and prove the feasibility of adoption at scale? We would be willing to partner with others to do this. Hypothesis number 2. Economies of scale for these new materials and methods will take too long. Every new approach is expensive at first due to slow adoption and small scale. But if the adoption is high, then economies of scale kick in faster. Sounds obvious. But how can the laboratories and industry collaborate to prove and back some ideas that can be scaled up rapidly? That is exactly what happens in some industries where they evaluate together and back one technology. Many of you might remember the HD versus Blu-ray debate many years ago, and that is how it was settled. Hypothesis number 3. I have to go it alone because by working with others, I lose my product competitive advantage. Seriously, let's ask ourselves, do we have a product competitive advantage in this category? One way in which industries have grown is through the creation of ecosystems. Think of the ecosystem of mobile technology and startups, which created the apps, which have changed our lives forever. Would that have been possible if each player had thought that they had to do things alone? As some of you are aware, and as was just mentioned, the MTCoE was set up in 2016, the Mahindra-TERI Centre of Excellence, where the main objective is building a greener urban future by developing innovative energy-efficient solutions for the Indian climate. And as the Center of Excellence team is very aware, my constant question to them has been, how can we make the impactful work being done here reach the architectural firms, material manufacturers, software developers, students, and the whole ecosystem so that there is an urgent shift in the way we currently work. Let's start from the grassroots. Out of the 450 plus architectural colleges, less than 20 have coursework related to energy efficiency or sustainable design. Now, this is a huge knowledge deficit. India has over 10,000 architectural firms who are going to employ these graduates, and they are going to be working on shaping future India. We need to mobilize them all to adopt the fundamental guidelines for net zero working. Beyond academia and architectural firms, material manufacturers clearly need to innovate, and we need to reach developers who are shaping urban landscapes and influence them to join the decarbonization journey. In fact, driving commitment and action is one objective behind the Decarbonization Business Charter, which has been launched by us in collaboration with WRI, EcoCollab, and AEEE, and it already has 75 signatories. How do we create that ecosystem where we all work together towards a goal that will only help us meet the critical need of the hour? Because without urgent action in the building sector, a 1.5-degree pathway will not be met. Finally, let me end by saying that I hope I have been able to provoke you enough to think we rather than me. Because as the old Chinese proverb goes, none of us is smart as all of us. And it is being smart together that will help us save ourselves. Because the planet will continue with or without us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful and moving words. Next, I would like to introduce the esteemed panelists who are joining us today for today's discussion and the launch event. First on the panelists, we have Dr. Shailesh Kumar Agarwal, Executive Director, Building Materials and Technology Promotion Council, BMTPC, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. Please welcome him with a round of applause. Next, please welcome Mr. Manoj Kumar Rastogi, Chief Sustainability and Innovation Officer at JSW Cement. Next, we have Dr. Kartik Kumar, Director, R&D, Saint Cobain Research India Private Limited. Please, can we have a round of applause for him? Representing Mahindra Lifespace developers, we have the Head of Sustainability, Dr. Sunita Purushottam. Please welcome her. Next, we have Professor Dr. Chitrekha Kabre from the Department of Architecture from the leading Architecture and Planning Institute, School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. Please also welcome Mr. Kurt Schickman, member of the Board of Directors at the Cool Roof Rating Council. Today's session will be moderated by Mr. Sanjay Seth, Senior Director, Sustainable Infrastructure Program, TERI, and CEO, Griha Council. Before we begin the discussion, we'll be starting with the launch of our much anticipated MTCoE Daylight plugin tool. I would request our esteemed panel to untie the pamphlet at their desks. Why not, sir? Yeah. Thank you. I would now invite Mr. Ankit Bhalla, Senior Manager at Griha Council, to introduce the tool further.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I thank you all for sparing your time from your busy schedules and attending this particular session. I'll like to take you through the journey of the tool launch that we have done with a brief overview of what this study is and what we are trying to achieve. So developing this daylight plugin tool with the measured sky condition of India is particularly the main intent, the main aim with which the objective that we started off with the study. We all know that to provide occupant comfort, visual comfort is one of the very componentary, component that we have to address in a particular building, and it is addressed through two means. One is artificial lighting, and the other one is the natural lighting, which we get from sun. Now we have seen in the past from our vernacular architecture that it was being very well addressed in our buildings, where daylighting was the key source, where we didn't had artificial lighting, and it has just been 100 years when we have been introduced to artificial lighting. But before that, daylighting was something which was very well addressed. And now, since we have the option of artificial lighting, we have started exploiting it, and we have started creating buildings which are full of glazing. Without realizing the fact that what is going to be the interior spaces and how is it going to behave in terms of our own internal comfort requirements. Now, in some parts, we find that the places which are very closer to these glass facades, you have ample amount of daylight, whereas in certain cases, you find that the lighting levels are very low, where you need to, in fact, turn on artificial lighting systems or turn on the blinds because the lighting levels are daylight levels are quite high. Now, under such kind of a scenario, what ultimately happens is that we are leading up to sick building syndrome. Now, I believe amongst all of us, more than 50% of the people, or I believe more than 50% of the people will be consuming vitamin D tablets every week. And the major reason behind is that our exposure to sun is now reduced, very drastically. And because most of the time we are in our offices, in our schools, indoors, where we do not get this exposure of daylight. Now, this is certainly leading to a detrimental impact on our health. At the same time, it is also increasing the energy loads, the energy consumption loads of our particular building, because we are highly reliant on artificial lighting systems. Now, we need to first understand the physics behind this, is what ultimately is happening and what is the main source or the cause of problem, and how we can find a solution to this. Now, when we look at the light, the natural light, which is coming down to us from the sun or the sun radiations, now these are divided into frequencies, various multiple frequencies. Now, when we look at these frequencies, there is a very small window that we see, which is also known by the name visible spectrum, which is also known as WebGyor. Now, this is the only visible spectrum, which is a very small window, which carries daylight. Apart from that, the spectrum that you see on the right, on the left, whether it be gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet rays, infrared radiations, microwaves, we all know that these are very harmful radiations, and direct exposure to these radiations cause serious concerns. In fact, they also carry heat element with them, which is something which is trapped into our buildings, and to exhaust this intensive heat from our buildings, we are reliant on air conditioning systems. Now, before we move ahead, we need to also understand that these radiations, when they reach to our interior spaces, they have to cross various layers of our atmosphere. Now, these atmospheric layers, some are natural, some we have made or we have created in terms of pollutants, in terms of turbidity. Whereas the natural filter layers that we see are ozone layers, diffuse sky, etc. Now, the first layer which these radiations cross is basically the sky dome, the sky. Now, we have to understand that, whenever we look at the sky for, just observe the sky for, just an hour, and you will find that it is very dynamic. It changes very quickly. So that certainly means that, we have to understand this data and integrate this into our design first, which is something which was very well addressed by the designs that we see in our vernacular architecture. Now, in this contemporary world, when we start, evaluating or building up our buildings, we take help from simulation tool to assess the daylighting availability in our spaces, so that we can select the right glass, we can give the right aperture, we can have the optimum window to wall ratio in our buildings, or in fact, in some cases, we can also provide skylight in our buildings. So for that, the ultimate requirements that we have to model these into our softwares is that we require the climate file, which is readily available. We need the building description, which we eventually have at the planning stage. Now comes the sky model component. Now, this sky model component was something which was missing in the Indian data history, whereas this study started off 40 years back at CBI Roorkee, but unfortunately it could not escalate, and this study had to take a pause there at that point of time in India. Whereas the other countries took this particular study and they started developing their sky models, whereas in India we didn't have a sky model, and till date, like till 2020, we didn't have anyone. So there in our intervention came in where we started, identifying the sky model of India, because that is the first where which we need to cross. Now, as we look at the sky models which are there persistent in the world, the CIA, which is the International Body for Illuminance, has defined 15 sky models in the world. So as per CIA, which is the international body which defines standards for daylighting, has defined 15 sky models and says that in the entire world, if any sky model exists at any particular geographical location, it has to be from these 15 models. Now, these 15 models are further subdivided into 3 segments, which is overcast sky, partly cloudy conditions, and clear sky conditions, further divided into band of 5 models each. Now, in the year 2015, TERI took off this particular study where we successfully completed our first phase, where we launched a booklet for this in the year 2022. And we ventured into the second phase where we collaborated with SGRI Chennai for this particular study. For conducting this particular study, we have installed the first, the one of its kind sky scanner in India. So there are 2 sky scanners which are installed in the country. One is installed in our facility in Gurugram, and the other one is installed in Chennai, which is in the SGRI facility. Now, this particular sky scanner, what it does is it captures the entire sky dome within 10 minutes, and it captures the luminance data in 145 patches. Now, once this data is captured, we integrate into an ISO defined methodology, which is again been defined by CIA, and we convert this into the exact sky model, which is persistent at that point of time. Until now, we have been able to identify that for Gurugram, for the last 4 years, this is the sky pattern that we have observed. And for Chennai, this is the data recordings that have assessed us that the sky pattern of the particular location is sky type 14. Now, this particular data is something which is again being made available in the public domain on the MTCoE website. In case if you wish to, further investigate and know about the sky models, you can refer to the MTCoE website. To further move ahead, we have also done a lot of validation studies, both at our Gurugram facility as well as in SGRI Chennai, where we are continuously monitoring the lux data and validating it with the simulation results. Until now, the studies that we have found out that by using the actual sky model, your accuracy increases by almost 24%. We are also doing parallel assessments of Delhi and Gurgaon data that we have been able to capture till now. And with respect to that, we have published 3 papers till now in international conferences about the study that we have done. And we have more to come down. This is just the start. Now comes the main important component where, where this entire data is now going to be integrated. So these are some of the prominent daylighting softwares which are right now available in the market, on which designers, architects, green building consultants, they perform their daylighting assessments. Now, to what if we have right now investigated that only one software is available in the market, which is VLUX Daylighting Visualizer, which offers you the option to select the sky condition of your own type. Now, apart from that, there is no other software which can give you the sky condition to what you require to assess. And under business as usual, the simulation conditions that we consider is overcast sky scenario. But what we have just now seen on the previous slide, that is not so the case. That certainly means that the analysis that we are doing are not accurate, or they are not closer to the level of accuracy. Now, with respect to that, the objective of this particular plugin tool was to make you closer to the accuracy levels of what the exact luminance levels are there, what you are trying to achieve in your spaces. Now, the tool that we have developed is going to be further integrated, or the data that we have collected is going to be further integrated with a lot of other softwares which are there available into the market, so that the prime objective is that the daylighting accuracy increases every year with the data that we capture. I'm going to take you through a small video demonstration of what this tool is that we have developed. This tool that we have developed is a plugin which works on Grasshopper. So you just need to model your particular building object into any simulation, into any 3D modeling software tool. And you can impose it, or you can import this into the software, which is Rhino. Now, when you import this, you need to open Grasshopper and you need to assign each and every material reflectance value of your particular project, which is your walls, roof, surfaces, windows, etc. And once you do that, you then need to integrate the grid where you are going to perform your analysis. Now, it could vary from any particular height that you wish to do your analysis. After doing that, you need to integrate the weather data file, which is readily available, WA file, which is certainly used for energy simulations as well. You need to integrate this weather file into the plugin tool. Now, into this plugin tool, what we have done is we have created our recipe, our data set, which we have converted it into the RGB modules. And this we could not, do alone. We have taken help from GID India, who has helped us in defining, this entire process. And when we integrate our intervention data into this plugin tool, the results completely change. Now you integrate the weather file, you integrate our data into this particular plugin tool, where you will be now able to see that the output that we get, now the outputs that you get could be in daylight autonomy, it could be in UDI, which is basically working on the concept of climate-based daylighting modeling, which is annual analysis. So we are not talking just about point in time, we're talking about annual analysis. Now, once we see that the analysis that we get over the usual case is some, which is, telling you that it is over, uniform illuminance distribution in a particular space. But at the same time, when we integrate our measured data into the analysis, we will find that the sky pattern is showing us the results, which shows that the skylight is not uniform. It is very diverse. The results tell you that the illumination pattern in your particular space is not uniform. It is very undefined. Now, when we do such kind of an analysis, it helps us to define the right scale. And as you can see on your screen, that the measured values which were there, our results are very closer to the actual measured value, whereas the business as usual practices that we are doing are no more, closer to what the actual reality is. And this is the reason why after the buildings are delivered, people are facing problems of visual comfort, and that is where we intend to make sure that the buildings that we design, they are intended to meet the purpose of visual comfort. With that, I thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankit. We now declare the tool open for use in hope of aiding designing improved climate response structures, which also improve human health and lifestyle. I'll finally be heeding the floor to Mr. Sanjay, who will continue the discussion with our panelists.
That's okay. No. It's fine. It's perfectly all. I'm loud enough. Thank you very much. And a very warm welcome to all the eminent panelists that I have here today, representing policy, academia, and industry. Developer, you just launched a tool which is eventually going to be used by Sunita in all her future constructions. That is why Mahindra-TERI Centre of Excellence is so. And then, of course, we also have someone behind the scenes. Karthik is online. I hope we don't forget Karthik. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Karthik, for joining. A round of applause for Karthik as well.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting.
Yeah, who's of course joining us from Chennai. And this is, of course, the technology which is making it all happen. So thank you very much, Karthik, for joining. I'm not going to be talking about the various things which have already been talked. I think since morning we have been talking about how important various aspects of building materials, innovative technologies, blah, 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 so many things, right, for sustainable infrastructure. I'm going to jump straight onto the questions, and I'm going to begin with where we all start, right? We all began, we all went to schools, we all went to colleges, we got the basic training, and that is where Chitrarekha Kabre, Professor Chitrarekha Kabre, you, I feel, is a responsible person to train us up, right? So I'm going to ask you, Professor, that you know the background. I'm not going to be going into the background, but do we have adequate resources to encourage prioritization of carbon considerations at each life cycle stages of the buildings? This is the era of carbon. Everyone is talking of carbon. There is a carbon market which has been established. The Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change is talking of green credits, right? So everything boils down to this now. So how do we, what are the challenges around it? What is it that are hindering, carbon neutral development? To your mind, how are you addressing this problem when you're teaching or creating the next set of resources which are going to drive this very important element in our economic structure?
Good afternoon, everyone. I think this is a pertinent forum for a discussion at the education level, how we are going for decarbonization. I think it is a three-pronged approach, that is the eco-design, eco-production, and eco-consumption. So eco-design means that we encourage the students or the architects or all the stakeholders for making the building long life, durable, and adaptable. Because a building has a lifespan of say 70 or 100 years and all, and it may have change of use. So today morning only I had a lecture to my students. So we talk about the buildings which can be adaptable, reuse, or they can be converted into any other kind of functions. So that is one important thing. And then we have to also look at the building energy optimization. So all the the envelope design, the kind of material we use, that should be low carbon material. And the second thing is the production, the material which we are taking up, the source of the material. One thing is that we should encourage the local material available to be used. Second thing is the material which has high recycle content. Third thing is the material which are having low embodied energy. The other thing is that we should encourage the use of construction and demolition waste in our buildings. So, and whatever material we use, we have to think of that how it can be recycled in the future. I like to tell that in 19th century, the concern was, the building industry concern was the efficiency. We were looking at efficient design. 20th century, we were looking on the facility management, because we had the technology, we had skyscraper and all. We were looking at how we can maintain this building. Now the 21st century is that what happens to this building after it has lived its useful life. So it is the after the this, that is, we have to look at that how this building can be, we are not converting them into waste in transition. The buildings are not waste in transition. So we have to see that what is its further use, and we have to look at the circular economy part or circularity in the material construction, and we have to design the buildings with that perspective. So this is what is, and I think the hindrance right now is the perception of the people, that if I say that this building has got this much low embodied carbon and all, the people think that whether it is durable or not, whether it is of good quality or not. So that is a perception people have got. The second thing is lack of information, that we do not have that amount of validated information. For that we have to work further, and we may have to go for eco-labeling of the material, and which could be ISO 14024 type 1 framework, so that a user is informed that the material they are using has got this environmental impact, and there is a valid, like we have for energy efficiency, we have now star rating for equipment. So similarly for material also we should have eco-labeling. So I think that is what I have to say.
So
on
EPD,
this.
so that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay, but I'm glad to hear. I just wanted to understand that since there is lack of information available, how are you kind of overcoming the challenge in when you're training the next set of people, in that constrained environment of lack of information?
Yeah, we are conducting research. We have doctoral level research going on in our institutes, and we are one is going on life cycle assessment of the material. One is research is going on life cycle energy analysis, because if I am able to establish that a material during its production, what material was consumed and what energy will be consumed during its operational phase, and then what energy will be consumed in its demolition and reuse. So we are looking at from the life cycle perspective. So this is life cycle energy analysis of the material, and then we are looking at the life cycle assessment, where we are trying to find out the environmental impact of the material. So these kind of research is there, and we are also had our PhD scholars visiting UK. So they worked with the laboratories there, and they could get some information and get training for that purpose. And we are having data sharing with other institutions and organizations.
Thank you very much. I think that is very, very appropriate. And that's the reason why we have Dr. Chitralekha Kabre here, a round of applause for her for the work that she is doing. I am now going to, once they have trained those people, then many of us end up working with the government or industry. But we have government first, right? Policy. What better than Mr. Sailesh Kumar Agarwal, Dr. Sailesh Kumar Agarwal, I correct myself. He has been at the helm of doing work. He represents BMTPC. We all know the Building Materials Technology Promotion Council, right? And we know about the lighthouse projects which have been initiated by the under the Prime Minister's initiative. So all of that. And in the recent budget, there has been this announcement to catalyze research called the Anusadhan National Research Foundation. Act has been brought into force on February 5th, 2024. I have no idea. But this is in my notes, which have been given by my colleagues who have researched this entire thing. So I just want to know that, for the work that you are doing, fostering practical implementation and collaborating with key stakeholders, there is a lot of innovative work that you are doing. How is it that you are taking it to the end users, to the people who are really building practitioners and all of that, to bridge the gap between laboratory-based research? There is a big difference, right? So there is something which we do at the lab, and then we bring it down to on ground. So how do we make sure that it is implementable? It converts to ensure effectiveness in advancing building materials and energy efficient design. So how is it that you are being able to contribute to this? Okay, you have it.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you very much. And let me first start with the saying that BMTPC is a unique organization which acts as a bridge between laboratory development and its field level application. So we have been working in this area, and there are a couple of things which require to be done, like mechanization, automation, skill development, codification, development of schedule of rates, demonstration construction. So in all those areas, we have been working. So basically, we are the agency who bridges the gap between laboratory development and field level application. Also, let me tell you here, because I come from BMTPC, whole lot of research is going on in our country, but there is something called, laboratory development and its field level application. And in between, there is a valley of death. Okay. Most of the technologies, they do not cross that valley and dies down. Okay. And for that, what Government of India has done, I think Sanjay ji knows about it. It is for the first time when this present government took over. We are quite concerned about environment. We are quite concerned about sustainability. I, being civil engineer, I don't talk about green credit, carbon credit, but I will tell you what kind of work, what kind of interventions we have been doing so as to have sustainable development. You all know about life. I think I was so pleased to see that in the WSDS you have written life also. So if you just go through that life document, lifestyle for environment, you will understand everything they have given. While you are shaving, you have to close the taps. Those kind of simple things to complex things about building, construction, energy, and all those things are being given. So the government is quite concerned. And let me tell you, each ministry is playing a pivotal role. Ma'am was talking about circular economy. We are coming out with papers on each and every material, every natural resource, how it can be made circular. Any material, whether we talk about limestone, whether we talk about steel, or all of those things. But let me talk about my ministry. I come from Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and you all should feel very proud that, day before yesterday, only Honorable Prime Minister said that we have already delivered 40 million houses. 4 crore houses have already been delivered across the country. We are 30 million in rural areas and 1 million in urban areas.
This is affordable housing?
Affordable housing. And this is all affordable housing. And since Sanjay ji has raised this point, why we are talking about affordable housing all the time. So if you look at the shortage, more than 90% housing shortage is in affordable sector, EWS, and you might be knowing that in this budget very recently, Government of India is going to launch a scheme for middle class people also. Okay, right now it was for LIG and this, and LIG, middle class was left out. So now the new scheme is coming for interest intervention, subvention, it is called. So I started with the 3 crore houses we are building, and when we started this mission in 2015, we very well knew that it cannot be done with business as usual approach. Business as usual approach means by just constructing using brick, cement, it cannot be done. So our ministry, I will talk about rural. I can take some time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I will talk about both the ministries. Rural development is dealing with ministry, housing for all rural. It is called Grameen in Hindi, and we are dealing with housing for all urban or shahri. So we knew it very well that it cannot be done with business as usual approach with bricks and classical cast in situ concrete construction. So I feel so great about this government that we started under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, we started technology submission. I think you know about it. And technology submission is all about what Sanjay ji was talking about. I don't know much. I have to collaborate with people like industry, I have academia, NGOs, and all those things. So we created this platform, technology submission, where through which, see, housing is a state subject. So we said, we told the states that we will handhold you in collaboration with academic NGOs and all these organizations, and we will bring in sustainable solutions for you. And technology submission has been a great success. In fact, I am talking to you with great confidence because I myself is doing more than 16 projects, demonstration projects we call. I told you about Valley of Death. So to take anything for field level application, you have to demonstrate it in the field. We may talk about life cycle cost, but you have to demonstrate it in the field. So Government of India under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is actually showcasing these sustainable materials and technologies through demonstration construction across the country. And those demonstration housing projects are being taken as live laboratories. Live laboratory means anybody can go there, stay there, study those projects, get themselves exposed to those technologies, adapt them, suggest whatever you feel like suggesting as well. So the demonstration projects we are doing, handholding of states we are doing, we are collaborating with academia and research laboratories of the nation so as to bring sustainable solutions and look for practical solutions. I still remember long back when Griha was launched, I was the first to tell that time you were not there. I told them that why don't you rate my demonstration projects first? So, Government of India has created a platform where all of you can experiment. You can share your data. You can share your research with us. And if it has some, merit potential, we will definitely take it to the field level application. Then what we did, in 2019, again, let me first tell you about rural. Rural also, if you are interested in, isolated houses or beneficiary-led construction, there is a beautiful document published by Ministry of Rural Development called Pahal. Pahal is a Hindi word that means first. So what they have done here, again, this might be a favorite topic for ma'am, but we have been talking about vernacular construction. Okay, and I myself is an earthquake engineer. I always say vernacular construction is good, but it doesn't perform well when we talk about earthquakes or natural hazards. So, and the kind of knowledge we have acquired now and the kind of tools we have now, so there is need to create a marriage between vernacular construction and kind of modern tools and modernization we have. So there has to be synergy between what our ancestors were doing and what we do now. Okay, so Pahal is the document which talks about those vernacular construction and the kind of knowledge we have and what kind of modification we can do so as to have all these things which you are talking about. Sustainability. You all may go through that document. It can be downloaded from Ministry website. Let me also tell you here that this government is so transparent. Whatever we are talking, it's all uploaded on government's websites. Any document you can access. Okay, so that was about rural. Then in urban development, what we did, I'm talking about 2019. In 2018, there was a news item in paper that China has printed 300 buildings. China has printed 300 row houses. So printing, from somewhere this word came that building can be printed in 2019. And that time, Honorable Prime Minister called our secretary and asked us that what is this printing and why can't we print buildings in our country? It was in 2019, and 4 years, that time we didn't know that building can be printed. And right now in India, there are more than a dozen entrepreneurs, startups who are, exporting printing machines abroad. We didn't have any knowledge about it. That's how, there is a connection. So printing machines we were taking from other countries, and now there are dozen entrepreneurs in our country who are exporting. They are manufacturing those machines here and exporting them to other countries. So in 2019, when we talked about printing, we thought that there is no harm in transplanting the best practices available, global best practices. Let them bring it to our country, adapt them, and make them, and bring them under the umbrella of Make in India.
Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Atmanirbhar Bharat we are talking about. So in 2019, we conducted a global housing technology challenge. And through that global housing, the tagline was, the challenge was to, know the construction systems available across the world, which can help build India faster. The tagline was maximum number of houses in minimum time and minimum cost. Do we have technologies?
But sustainability was not.
I'll tell you that. So sustainability was there, yeah. So we have shortlisted 54 construction systems, which are the words which he's talking about. These are jargons, So we have given resource efficient, climate responsive, disaster resilience, and fast track. The bottom line is all of these construction systems I'm talking about, they can reduce the construction time by 50%. So the building which, and there have been round the corner, you might be seeing in WhatsApp and all, JSW knows about pre-engineered building we are talking about. We are doing a project where, we are making the entire building module in a casting yard, and you can put that building module one over the other like Lego blocks. In fact, Honorable Prime Minister talked about it. So construction time is being reduced. So that was the challenge, and through that challenge, we have created a basket of 54 new technologies. And now, when we interacted with Sanjay ji, he talked about thermal comfort. So we have roped in international agency called GIZ, and we are working in close coordination with TERI also, that whether these construction systems which we are promoting are really helping creating thermally comfortable houses. So GIZ is doing a study, and whatever comes out of it, those studies, we will definitely implement it in the field. So those construction systems, we have created a basket, and we didn't stop there. Again, categorically, Prime Minister desired that we should showcase these technologies by actually constructing houses. So those lighthouse projects which we are doing across the country, in 6 places we are doing lighthouse projects where we are actually showcasing those these sustainable construction systems and other construction practices. TERI is involved. All these projects are being rated under GRIHA, and most of them are rated 4. Except one, which is GRIHA rating 3. So all of you can go visit these projects. Being civil engineer, I talk about embodied energy construction systems, which can help reduce construction time, resource efficiency, not in terms of material only, but in terms of human resource also. We are talking about assembly line production, the way we, manufacture. One of my friend, he coined the word, let's not construct building, let's manufacture them. So once you start manufacturing the buildings, all sustainability and all those aspects will come into picture. So all of you can go and visit those projects. All this information is available on websites also. And I think he raised a very valid point that we have to create an enabling ecosystem for this. So we are working. I go and teach in SPA, where we do teach energy efficiency, how to calculate embodied energy, what are the alternate materials, what are the case studies. So that kind of ecosystem is being created. We are working hand in hand with Bureau of Indian Standards, where all these new technologies or new materials we are talking about, they should have mention in standards. We are also working hand in hand with CPWD, because one of the impediment when you work with government is the price, is the rate. So for all these new technology or sustainable materials, we are asking CPWD to issue schedule of rate.
Cost-effective solutions.
And cost-effective, I think the first person from Mahindra Lifescape. Every now and then this question is being asked. So it's again the same thing, economies of scale. So because all these technologies, all these material, I mean, we can talk about this research and all, but cost is something which need to be addressed, and cost will come down definitely once the technology is mainstream. Also, again, just on government front, I don't know whether everyone talks about fly ash and all. Very recently, on 1st January 2024, another amendment have come on that fly ash notification, where it is being said that all the construction which is taking place within 300 kilometer radius of any thermal power plant, they have to invariably use fly ash based products. Not only they have to use fly ash, but also fly ash based products, whether it is bricks, tiles, sintered aggregate, and other materials. So I think I'll stop here for the time being.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that was very, very informative. That is why we always have BMTPC, Dr. Shailesh Kumar Agarwal on our panels. The wealth of knowledge that he brings in with him as far as government functionary is concerned. Hats off to you, sir. Continue to be supporting us in the way that you are. Thank you very much. Now I will move. I don't want to keep Karthik waiting for too long in Chennai, lest he runs away from there. So Karthik, you know, there is... we are talking of net zero, but 2070, we are talking of decarbonizing, all these jargons that we keep hearing day in and day out. But I'm told, and again, this has been some figures that have been given, that in the building and construction sector accounts for a significant 68% of the overall national greenhouse gas emission inventory, with resource extraction per unit area substantially higher than the global average, right? And the R&D initiatives, there have been a lot of focus and backing by the government now on R&D. There is an increased spending in the R&D in the country. So since you are representing the research and development arm of St. Gobain, I would want to know your efforts that are being put together to decarbonize this sector. You know, so what is it that you are doing? How is it that you are supporting organizations such as TERI, maybe, you know, where we are collaborating to find where, you know, we are working on applied research and you all are in the R&D. So how can there be an synergy between the two? So your thoughts on that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Sanjay. And of course, thanks to all of you for inviting me. I'm sorry I couldn't travel today. In a way, it's I feel a little sustainable by, you know, participating with this new technology. But first and foremost, I would like to, you know, thank all the earlier speakers, which has really set the context in this arena where I'm going to touch upon a bit. If you look at industry, and specifically my industry in glass, we are actually gearing towards the net zero carbon by 2050, and this is in line with the national, target of net zero by 2070. So our R&D efforts are clearly on table. All our innovation pipeline and projects are clearly sustainability based, whether it is going to be in materials, whether it's going to be in process, or whether it's going to be in an ability for us to influence lower energy consumption on this front. So these are the few areas I would want to kind of highlight and in depth. Now, if I were to look at scope 2 and scope 1, that's the easiest part for our industry. Literally, that's in our control, that's in our ability to manage. And that's what we did first and doing first at this point of time. We are looking at renewable energy for our furnaces. We are using the processes which use lower energy and make sure we don't waste energy in terms of melting or, in terms of consumption in many places. In fact, one of our leeway, especially in India, is to understand the usage of biofuel. Biofuel is a very interesting avenue for us actually, because it's an ability for us to consume in an agriculture industry like ours, where we could have most of our biological waste converted into fuel, which we are also working a lot on in terms of our research. And we have used such opportunities to go for near zero products, and we are actually possibly even zero carbon products, which will be eventually coming out soon. And this is from a product front, where we have a full control on the ability for us in our factory, ability for us from the perspective of our vendors, and ability for us to innovate with our vendors. And when we go further, we also have you have to understand glass is fully recyclable. So that's one of the better position where we are in. And some places where we are operating with cement, we need to understand how to operate with the cement which are having our cement-free system like cement-free mortars. Now we are consciously increasing the ability for us to recycle this glass pellet. This is difficult because the recycling circularity of our materials are not well designed so far. Today, we don't, as a consumer, we don't segregate or separate our waste. And more importantly, there's no clean glass that can come into our factory that I can use directly without any metal contamination or the ability for us to have a pigment which solves destroys the furnace property. So we are making
your
a
audio
lot
is
of.
gone, Karthik. Sorry, yeah.
Can you hear us now? Can you hear me?
No. Something wrong with the. Is it at our end or is it at his end?
Can you hear me? I seem to be hearing you. I can hear you. I can hear you. I don't know when I lost you.
Yeah, now we can hear you. Okay, we are good. Okay.
I don't know when I lost you. Probably you have to help me with the last.
No, so
part.
just continue. That doesn't matter. We just lost you for a split second. Yeah.
Okay. So of course, I'm talking about the usage of glass cullet, as we call it, in terms of recyclability, and we are doing R&D to enhance the usage of glass cullets from various sources which are which are easily available than compared to the past, which are not being picky about how clean the glass is and how we can separate out the contaminants. This is some part of the R&D which we are doing. And in terms of our transportation and redesigning our packing and logistics, we are trying to reduce our scope 3 carbon during transit and shipment. So this is in fact, in most of our glasses are now sold without any packaging. We call that as naked, shipment. At this point of time, they are and the ability for us to bring back the A-frames which are used to transport. We look at the logistics. We use data analytics to make sure there's a good logistics around it. And what is most important is, as a material, how do we get to the lightest possible material in terms of sustainability without compromising or losing any performance, and so that it offers a lower load on the foundation and use of such sustainable buildings. And I heard professors talk about it. I heard Mr. Agarwal talk about it in terms of the Lighthouse project. We participate in the Lighthouse project. We are also part of the live laboratory in many places, and we are working with the startups like Twasta in printing buildings and the equivalent of that. And I wanted to also emphasize, beyond materials, we are also very keen on being part of scope 3 and educating consumers on how to be sustainable. So this is where, as Ankit Ballam indicated, how do we have the glass used appropriately in daylighting? Do we have the right knowledge in terms of usage of glass? Do we have the right level of glazing and coatings which are appropriate for each of the purpose in our building? So this is another aspect of research where our coatings, whether it is going to be a chemical coating or whether it is going to be a magnetron coating, how do we really have a unique glazing that serves the purpose? And what are the kind of designs we work on it? These are the certain aspects of how we tune our R&D towards the sustainable material, and how we can even partner with institutions like TERI. So of course, Ankit mentioned how we are being part of the daylighting program, but I'm keen to also be a part of in other aspects which we are really working on. We are working with Dr. Sunita in terms of whether we can have a new building systems which we can build in affordable housing systems, or can we really build in the lightweight gypsum board systems for us in terms of our sustainability. So this is a kind of a glimpse of what we are doing as an R&D. I'm sure we can certainly learn from each other. I heard Mr. Vazir talk about how we can collaborate as not just industry, academia, and developers. I think it's much more than that. It's a great initiative that we all have to come together and share this knowledge. I know again, thank you for inviting me, but I know it's great to be online.
Thank you, Karthik.
Yeah,
absolutely wonderful. and really compliments to you for the work that you all are doing. And we hope that we continue to collaborate and work together.
Sure.
I'll move on to Kurt Schickman, who's on the board of directors of the Cool Roof Rating Council from the United States of America. I'm glad that he could make it here, and we got you at the right time. You were here, and we made sure that you were on this panel. Kurt, as you know, cool roofs, thermal comforts. I mean, this is something which we are all talking about. He mentioned about how we are trying to work on this largest piece of work, because when you talk of thermal comforts, it's very, very important, especially in the housing for all that you mentioned about, the program of the Ministry of the Government of India, where housing have to be provided at scale to overcome the gap which is already existing. But at the same time, we need to make sure that these are thermally comfortable. Otherwise, it doesn't really meet the purpose. Now, Cool Roof Initiative is something which, and thermal comforts and the various technologies that are really going to play in are important. But when you're talking of housing for all, then cost-effective technologies are the key, right? And how do we really go about evaluating these is something which we are all talking about. So, while we are talking of smart building technologies, building automation, we are talking of IoT sensors and connectivity, we are talking of all such high-end technologies. But how do we really bring them in to enhance performance of your buildings, but at the same time be cost effective? Your thoughts?
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Seth, for including me in this panel. I'm very honored to be here.
It's a pleasure.
So I would suggest that there are a number of roles that the research community and labs can play when it comes to integrating what we're doing on passive cooling technologies, but also higher end technologies as well. And I can share humbly an example from the Cool Roof Rating Council where I'm a member. Most of what I'm going to share happened before me, so it's not bragging, just sharing what they've done. But one of the key questions around cost effectiveness is there's a disconnect in my mind between a lack of knowledge around the benefits of many of these technologies, but certainty around the first cost premium in the early stages. And so there's a role for research and labs in conjunction with civil society, with practitioners, with other users, to investigate the full spectrum of benefits. Some of those will accrue to the building owner or to the developer, in which case certain incentives can be put in place. In other cases, those might accrue to society, and that is a policy solution. And so I think there's a role there, and the Cool Roof Rating Council is one of those types of institutions that is driving towards data-driven understandings of the benefits of these different technologies, in my case on passive cooling. But that is an important beneficial role that labs and research institutions can play. The other, and I think more important in this context, is there are a wide variety of products out there, and there are a wide variety of standards to test those products for their performance. And when we just have certifications or just setting a performance level and not really digging into how we're measuring that performance and looking at that across a variety of use cases, we're not really solving the problem.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a role here, and this is actually the reason the Cool Roof Rating Council was formed in the first place in 1998. There was a demand for cool roofs in the California building code, but there was no way to determine whether those products met the standards that they were going to set. And even if they said they met it, did they actually meet it in reality, or was it just a number on a piece of paper? And so the Cool Roof Rating Council brought together industry. There's now 120 different members across all of roofing and the wall industry. They brought together research institutions, including the national labs, Oak Ridge and Lawrence Berkeley in particular, and also civil society advocates, which is my background, to really work through an understanding of not just the individual testing standards, but how they fit together and how they can be improved over time as we innovate in this space. We also often think of passive cooling as a very staid, traditional space from a technology perspective. In fact, there's a lot of innovation that's happening there. And when we're innovating, that means that the tests also need to innovate. So the Cool Roof Rating Council is a body that is able to do that. Now, what that's allowed us to do is integrate with confidence cool roof standards and cool wall standards into not just California, but now the model codes, ASHRAE 90.1, IEC, the International Energy Conservation Code, the green codes, our version of GRIHA and IGBC, the lead programs. Those have been made possible and have driven markets because they have confidence in the underlying performance of the products that are there, and confidence in a body that it includes all of those different actors. In many cases, as our keynote mentioned, looking at we, so the industry working together towards a common goal. So I really see right now, especially a lot of parallels between what we were facing and the reason for the creation of Cool Roof Rating Council in the late 90s in the US with what's happening here. We have a huge need for thermal comfort in our buildings, and especially in buildings where the willingness to pay and cost premium is critically important to keep as close to zero as possible. Yeah. The only way to do that is to get to scale and through collaboration. But to do that, we need to have confidence in the products. And so as we develop our policies, integrating that with the testing regimes and the testing standards so that that's possible will drive action. We went from about a 1%, 1.5% penetration on cool roofs in the commercial space in the US in the late 90s. It's now closer to 70%. And that's in large part because these codes were able to, with confidently, adopt cool roof standards that could be then enforced easily. And that comes to labeling as well. I won't go, I know we're running short on time, but this also underpins labeling so that it's not just a policy vehicle, but it's also a market awareness vehicle. So when that architect is speccing or that designer is speccing a particular roof product or wall product, there's confidence that what they're speccing is going to work at the level that it's set at. So
informed decision making.
Exactly. So to Dr. Agarwal, your point, that sort of supportive infrastructure and ecosystem, I think this is a critical role for research institutions, labs, in conjunction with the broader industry to play together. And I think there's a huge opportunity here to do that.
Thank you. I think that's very helpful. And that's the reason why we have more people from the industry on the platform today. You and me represent the NGOs, and we want them to collaborate with us to make sure that all the work that you talked about, we are able to bring it back to the end users, right?
Absolutely.
So good to have you, Manoj. I am sure that you're going to collaborate very heavily with us as an industry partner. Yes. And since you represent one of the key elements of any construction industry, without cement and steel, we are nowhere. Despite the fact that he mentioned fly ash is very important now and it's kicking in a big way, right? Partly, right? So that's the key word. So, and then you talk about innovative cement production methods, use of carbon capture and storage technologies, right? He talked about fly ash. Then you talk about fly ash and slag, adoption of more energy efficient manufacturing processes, the PAT scheme that you are aware of. But scaling up these technologies to commercial levels, obviously the cost is not going to be kept with you. It's going to be a pass-through. So how do you make sure that eventually when you, are able to do all of this, you are able to bring down the price, provided at prices which are acceptable to the market? Otherwise, there will be no scale-up. Economies of scale is separate. I'm sure that the manufacturer does not wait for economies of scale to happen. He comes in and he says that, let me first get my money out and then I will talk of economies of scale. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So,
demand and supply in the market, all of that.
Yeah. So good evening, everyone. And thank you, Sanjay ji, for having me here. So a lot has been discussed and a lot has been spoken. The first one, which is what is the role of the cement, in the whole construction value chain, and where does it stand? So we got some numbers in the beginning of the session that how much is the total CO2 emission in the life cycle analysis Madam spoke about, Prof spoke about, is happening in the built environment and the infrastructure sector. So not the operational carbon, but the embodied carbon. If we talk about 40 to 50% of that comes from the cement, the contribution comes from the cement. The remaining 30-35% is steel. And the other building materials like glass, aluminium, copper, so they contribute to the remaining portion. So the maximum in the LCA, the maximum contribution on the embodied carbon in the built environment actually comes from the cement. So the challenge for us, for the cement industry in India, is to how to reduce it so that the total embodied carbon in the built environment goes down. So the industry, the cement industry in India is the second largest industry, cement industry in the world. we consume around 400 million ton of cement, which mainly goes into the construction, real estate, commercial infrastructure. And this is growing. This is growing as we heard, initially that the 70% of the infrastructure which is needed by 2047 is still to be built. So the cement, as the real estate and construction is growing, cement production is also growing at the rate of 7-8% every year, year on year. So the challenge is to meet that demand and also, to decarbonize at the same time. So for that, I mean, lot of work is happening in India. The good thing I can share that in terms of the energy efficiency in the manufacturing process, if for the cement, India is the most energy efficient in the world. So that is a fact. The CO2, the intensity per ton of cement, that is 10% lower than the global average. Global average is 580 kg per ton of cementitious product. India is at around 530, and these data have been validated and researched, by the global agencies. JSW Cement, as a company, we have a capacity of 20 million ton, and we produce slag cement basically and GGBS. So which is much lower in terms of the carbon footprint. So against the national average of 530, we are at less than 200 kg. So that is where we are today. People ask me, if we take 530 kg, 400 million ton, that's like 215 to 220 million ton of CO2 coming out of the cement manufacturing is scope 1. So if we do 200 kg, if everybody does 200 kg, that is going to be drastically lower. But that is difficult because the material which we use, and it comes back to the point, Prof. Kapreshi was making on the circularity. So we use only 30% natural resource, which is limestone. 70% of the material which we use for cement manufacturing is a waste coming from different industries. It is fly ash, it is slag, it is red mud, it is steel slag. Some of the bio waste which we have, pharmaceutical waste as alternative fuel. So a lot of alternative material which is coming as industrial waste, from all these industries, including municipality waste, is used by us, for alternative raw materials or alternative fuels, and that is how we bring down the CO2 footprint. Purely from the cost point of view today, if one has to look at PPC or PSC, these are the blended cement which are much lower in CO2 footprint. They're actually cheaper than OPC. So the cost is not a challenge even today. We did a paper, with GCCA India last year on the blended cement. And that is to increase the usage of the blended cement. Some of the government contracts, in fact, today ask for OPC, even today. So because, historically they have been using OPC, but it is changing. It is changing. It is taking time, but it is changing. And, some of the contracts are now asking for or approving, blended cement usage. I personally had, a lot of discussion with the railways in terms of, railway sleepers and the other places, they use a cement, they still use OPC. How to use blended cement, instead of the OPC. So that lever is available even today. The blended cement manufacturing can increase, the carbon footprint can come down. It is just that the everybody in the private and the public sector has to start asking for blended cement, and that is where the standards come into place. One of the discussion which we usually have, and it's a global discussion, the cement standards are all prescriptive. So there is a recipe, that is how the cement is going to be manufactured. Now the people are talking about performance-based standards. So there are applications which are there. So the cement which is to be used for plastering, for flooring, for slabs, for different application. How do you have performance-based standards rather than prescriptive standards like we have in the case of a steel industry? So that discussion is going on. I think that's going to be very helpful. The cost, again, coming back to Sanjay's point, the cost angle for decarbonization in the cement industry, which is going to be there, will kick in after 10 years or 15 years, and that is CCS, the carbon capture and storage, or utilization, partly utilization, so CCUS. Globally, some of the projects are happening, and it is expensive to capture carbon, because first we are unlocking it from the limestone, then we are trying to lock it in again, by doing capturing it and then doing geological sequestration. So that is expensive. The only thing, the analysis which we have done, and the silver lining here is the cost increase which happens in the cement. Though the cement for the embodied carbon is like 40% of the embodied carbon in the LCA. From the cost point of view, it's only 2-3% of the total cost of the construction in terms of the cement and concrete. Now, so the delta increase which is there, so that on the project cost is actually 1 or 2%. So that is a very minimal increase on the total project cost. I mean, if we have to look at the total building, and I'm not including the land cost, I'm just saying the construction cost of a building. This, there is some time, we still have. We are doing a roadmap. Actually, we are working with TERI, the India cement industry. I work with GCC very closely. So TERI is helping us put together a roadmap to align to the India objective of meeting net zero by 2070 on cement. And concrete, we are targeting 2050, because there are other ways and levers, at the concrete level to bring down the carbon to net zero. So it's just that I think it's a journey, which we have to take, and the demand pull is very important here, specifically for cement. And I'm really thankful to Mr. Agarwal, for all the good work ministry is doing. Because if there is a demand pull and there is demand, for the low carbon product, the industry is going to work on its own. I think that is going to drive or accelerate, the decarbonization in the industry. Industry is doing something, but it is just that the demand thing is going to further accelerate it further and fast track it. So these are some of my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Manojji. I think that's it's very important because, as you rightly said, bulk of our infrastructure is yet to be put in place. So the cement and steel are going to play a key role, right?
Yep.
So, and then of course the infrastructure, the people who are going to put that infrastructure is sitting right at the end of this table, Dr. Sunita Purushottam. And the reason why we have engaged with them, and we had the privilege of Viral opening the conversation today through a keynote address, very, very appropriate remarks that he made there. And we are going to close it with your remarks, because that's the reason why we are talking to responsible people like you. And whatever is being discussed in this house, in the summit here, and in the session today, all of it is going to be embraced by Sunita, right? And Mahindra as a responsible developer. Your thoughts?
Wow. So the burden of decarbonization truly lies on the developer, definitely. And actually, it's very scary if you are. My role in the organization as sustainability head is intervening in every aspect of the business. And I just want to share some of the internal mechanics of what happens within a developer's organization.
Is Viral off?
Yes.
Okay. Good for you.
I think so. No, but then the work that Viral has done with a subject matter expert has been tremendous, because it's the integration of sustainability within the business. And it is about, and he insisted that, Sunita, you going out to a conference or setting up a laboratory will not help us unless it is integrated within every aspect of what we are doing.
Sure.
So Viral, he is chief of marketing, and he's my boss, and he gave the opening remarks, and he said that let's build the integration framework. And the integration framework looked like, how does a developer go to the market? So it's called GTM. It's a GTM process. Every developer has a go-to-market process. Now, the go-to-market process is very fast-tracked, right? And if you miss an opportunity to intervene in the go-to-market process, you have actually done a lot of damage. So where does it start? It starts from land selection. So I have to be there when the land is getting selected to find out whether there is a climate risk at that site. Where will water come from? Will this site be inundated or not? So site selection is very critical. So almost always the BD team, forgets to call me, but the integration process ensures that has Sunita seen a site or has my team visited? So that's where the integration starts. And then the design process and the massing starts. And almost every time design team forgets to involve me in the massing, because they are also fast tracked, launch karna, right? But then pulling that system in place, process in place, and getting the design team to show the massing and whether the orientation is right. That's where the first step is for the climate responsive design. Intervene in that, give the comments. And then when the designing process starts, we actually have a goals workshop, because we have to get to net zero energy, net zero waste, net zero water, plus green building. Since 2014, we have a 100% green portfolio. But how do you actually deliver on decarbonization, which we are talking about? We really have to look at integrating the goals. The goals workshop happens where all the stakeholders are invited, and costing team is involved, procurement team is involved, the design team is obviously involved, and the projects team is involved. So design interventions, even in how the wall to window ratio will be, what will be the size of the window, whether the window will be openable. Most developers, if you see Pune now and even in Bombay, the shades have disappeared, and these shading are critical for climate responsive design, the vertical and horizontal shading. The openings have to be dictated, and one of the key points that we are now getting in the research of visual comfort what is getting validated by the work getting done in
Fantastic.
It's like you really don't need to have end-to-end glass windows. In a country like India, because sky conditions are good for giving you natural light during the day, even with smaller sized apertures. So getting the research work into the designing process, this process is climate responsive design, and we worked a lot with the Building Energy Efficiency Program and GKSPL and team. 8 projects, I went to the business stakeholders saying, we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do this. And the last I said, I'm going to go to the CEO. And that's when Net Zero Energy, India's first Net Zero Energy project happened, which is at Eden. It's Eden in Bangalore. And now we have just launched Net Zero Energy and Net Zero Waste project. The project just got launched in Bombay. And materials becomes very important in waste. And when I spoke to Viral about net zero, the embodied carbon, he was of the opinion that, Sunita, you're talking in a language. So you already speak 4 languages, and now you're talking in a language called carbon. Okay, and he being what he is, he wanted to simplify. He said, just stick that whole thing under waste. People will understand what your requirements are if you say that we have to get to net zero waste. And that's how the GGBS that we are procuring from JSW really helps us meet that target of getting to net zero waste. So and also while the owners of so that's the design part. Then the procurement, we influence the procurement. We have to get the different types of materials, and then the construction. So construction team, making friends with the construction team was my first task, because when I would go to site, people wouldn't come to the meetings, right? And they would think that safety to karna hota hai, quality bhi karna hota hai. Ab ye kya aafat hai? Hum to data aapko de hi rahe hai. We'll give you the data. Why are you calling us for a meeting? then I set up a process and I set up a competition. I said, now I'm going to score you, and that score is going to go into your KRA. And every quarter we visit the sites, and our site visits are happening, and we score. And it's a self-assessment, because we wanted to become friends with the projects team. And we said, you do the self-assessment and we'll do the final scoring. And that has changed the way the sites took to sustainability. Now they are the best friends. So these are some of the interventions that we have done to integrate. And while the onus lies, it is a long way to go. And I want to share what we are struggling with. We are doing MyOne, and MyOne is a challenging, it's very terrible. It's terrible. We've done the testing at the lab, and I'm really upset about, MyOne walls, right? So we have to come up with some solution in high-rise buildings where we get the thermal comfort which Griha wants, which IGBC wants, and that thermal comfort we have to get below that 2.5 U value, and for the roof as well as for the walls, right? And that's an area of struggle, and would be happy to look at low cost, fast solutions which have thermal comfort also. And large amount of work from the laboratory actually act as guidebooks. Thermal comfort guidebook, the visual comfort guidebook, the glare indices. And I hope that all developers read them, and the architects working for the developers are able to integrate. Otherwise, as a part of decarbonization charter, all the developers who are there can adopt and adapt.
Great. Very good, Sunita. And compliments to you for your role as a sustainability head in the group, where Viral was the commercial person, right?
Yes.
So he has to, and you integrating with the commercial is very important, because eventually you're in the business of selling houses.
Correct.
And you need to make sure that they sell. Now, at this point, ladies and gentlemen, and my colleagues on the dais, I need to run from here. I have something else very urgent which I have to attend to. So Shabnam is going to take over, and you continue to stay here. Thank you very much for those very, very appropriate remarks, each one of you, and also people on the screen that we had, Karthik and of course Viral. Very, very appropriate comments. Thank you very much for being here. Sorry that I have to leave. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished dignitaries and our very patient audience. Before we close the program, I'd request Ms. Shabnam Bassi to join us on the dais to facilitate our guests with a vote of thanks.
I think before we close, I think I don't mind taking a few questions, because I think that is something that's important, that we understand the point of view of the audience and take some feedback. So I think I'm open to questions to us and to the panelists here. Any questions? Yes. Do we have a mic there?
What is the ability of green roof or rooftop garden in dealing with urban heat island? And my second question is, what is the scope of hempcrete or concrete made with hemp as building material to deal with thermal comfort and for energy efficiency?
So can I take the green roof one? So green roof can be done, not an issue. We'll have to integrate it with the solar panels. And we have explored a few such options. But what happens is the marketing team clearly wants to demarcate the green areas, even if we want to develop on the roof. And what ideally we would like is whether the green areas under the solar panels, those species of whatever can grow under solar panels, can provide some amount of cooling effect to the solar panel, so that the efficiency of the solar panel remains. But typically what happens is green roof, if you do it is developed as an amenity space, so it doesn't integrate with the solar. So it can be solved and it can be pushed. So instead of reflection, you basically have, solar panels plus the green roof. The green roof also can act as, where areas of excess rainfall, it can act as a sponge.
All right.
Hempcrete is something which is made with hemp.
Yeah.
Hemp is a plant grown in, I think, almost everywhere in the country. So there are few startups in our country who are making that hempcrete. So hempcrete panels are can be used as non-load bearing panel to start with, but research is on to make them non-load load bearing panel. Also, a hempcrete panel of 100 mm thickness or more is as good as regards U value as your brick, 9-inch brick wall. But still, research is on. There are few agencies who are working on hempcrete, but it's completely green material based on plant.
But I hope you don't want to add something here. You want to add something?
I think it was covered here, but just to say, in terms of green roofs, the other benefit of green roof beyond the evapotranspiration that you get from a cooling effect is the air quality benefits.
Yeah.
And in addition, especially as you get into a thicker substrate, there's a benefit in terms of insulation into the building itself.
Great. Any other question? Okay. All right. Thank you. And I think with this, we formally close the session. And of course, the conversation still continue because I think, yes, is there another question?
Hello. Sir, my question is with Ministry of Housing Department. There is any plan to make compulsory insulation because our houses do not have insulation and there is a great amount of heat loss in office spaces and houses. Thank you.
We are talking about overall cost effectiveness. So thermal comfort is required. Installation we will definitely promote. But right now, the major emphasis in our country, it's not about Ministry of Housing, but all of us together, we only talk about cost, initial cost of construction. That's why the new words like life cycle cost and all those things are being coined. But thermal comfort and insulation will definitely come into play in times to come.
I just have a anecdote to narrate. I made a house. It was a demonstration house for which GBPN has facilitated me also. In that, I had used all the insulation, the basic insulation, that is the cavity wall and whatever was best, and the roof, whatever CBRI has developed. And the people were, my neighborhood was astonished that why are you having cavity wall? And when my energy bills came, they were 10 times lower than the neighbors. And in fact, they thought there is something wrong with my utility meter. So we had to, I had to meet the CMD of the electricity board and explain him that I have done these innovations. And that's why so I think it is the awareness. And during Germany India year, we had exhibitions in 8 metro city. So there we were demonstrating that how insulation can be used. And we had, recorded the user's perception that's also published. So in that, the user always was concerned that, as sir is saying, that cost is more. But then we said that your energy bills will be, slashed. It will offset whatever capital cost you are. So I think it is just making the awareness among the people that is more important. Otherwise, in India, we can have, because in abroad, every house will have, irrespective of, in cold climate, I have seen, I was in Brisbane, which is also a tropical, semi-tropical climate. People were having, cavity walls. So in our country, I think people have to understand that. And for that, some kind of, awareness is essential. And already Griha they are doing this rating system, and also people will understand that my house is 4-star or 5-star. So it has some benefits. So that kind of, connect with the user is essential.
Yes, I think she made a very important point that, at the end of the day, if the user is able to understand the benefits of the building that he's living out of, and if he really treats the building as a green building, in terms of operation and how he uses it, I think that is where we would like to reach ultimately, and we want to provide that information in the public domain. So I think with that, we come to the end of today's session, and sometimes we look at research from one lens, and when we bring in experts from various fields, it gives us a different perspective, and that is very important. So I think thank you all for sparing your valuable time once again. And with this, we formally close the session. To also the online people who have joined us online. Thank you, Karthik, so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all once again.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. All right. So I think there are small goodies for all of you. I can start from here. Thank you. Thank you so much.